Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Cover to Cover. You're here with Mo,
Andrea,
and Morgan.
Today we'd like to dive into this idea of guilty pleasures. It's true, we all have them, but we think it's time to reclaim them and change the way that we feel about what we read. We also have a really great extended author interview that Andrea did recently, and we have some news about authors John Green and Dan Brown. But first, there are just a few important news stories that we really need to give note to today.
Yes, Michael Brown, the man who gave us Paddington Bear, died at the age of 91. 60 years ago, Bond wrote the beloved tale of Paddington after he was inspired from a trip to the department store near Paddington Station in London. He saw a lonely bear inside that hadn't been purchased, so he decided to take it home with him. Paddington went on to inspire over 150 books. Can you believe that? Sold 35 million copies, an animated TV series, and a full-length film. Bond was one of the most beloved authors in British history. His legacy will live on as his stories brighten the hearts of children everywhere.
I love that. Well, Deneen Milner, who was a mother of two, was weary of the African-American literature that was available for her children to read. She said all the books had the same somber themes of slavery, civil rights, and jazz musicians, and things like that. And Milner states that obviously there's nothing wrong with those themes, but she wanted to be able to tuck her kids in at night with more lighthearted stories that went through. So she went through this series of trying to pitch these ideas, and she was often rejected. So she decided to roll up her sleeves, and she started her own publishing company, Deneen Milner Publishing, which will curate stories that center on Black children's humanity and their everyday lives. She has a book coming out soon titled Early Sunday Morning, and she has many more stories in the pipeline.
well, perhaps we can all buy copies of Deneen Milner's books and donate them to local libraries. And speaking of donations, the University of Missouri Library is currently requesting book donations from the public. The library has had its budget slashed for the 2017 fiscal year and is experiencing difficulties in supplying materials for students and for the public. The library lost $1.2 million in funding and is expected to experience further cuts in the 2018 fiscal year. Their wish list includes books for arts, humanities, medicine and health sciences, science and engineering, social sciences, business, and a few special collection books. The library will be focusing its budget on journals and subscriptions, and, depending on donors, for more physical copies of books. If you'd like to help, we'll link to the wish list in our show notes. So what do you guys think about all that?
I think it makes sense that they can reach out to the public for this kind of stuff, because I know I still go to lots of libraries, and I would absolutely go to a university library for like specific needs, because they have these really detailed information things and special editions of stuff. So I think it is kind of our duty to help them out if their budget has been slashed, which is terrible.
Yeah.
It's a huge budget slash.
It really breaks my heart, because I know as a student, I remember going to my library and not being able to find the books I needed. And you either have to request it from another library, physically go out of your way to get it. Sometimes it's pretty far, or wait for it to be mailed to you. So my fear in this is that they're going to miss out on great works that students need to do research.
Yeah.
Because me, as a regular person hearing this, I might send them, a copy of some great novel, but that's not what students need for research.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. Yeah, for sure.
And as an art student, because Andrea and I both studied theater, it's really important to have access to just huge selections of plays and different things by playwrights. And without that stuff, and if you can't interlibrary loan it, you're kind of lost with what you need to do. And it's so crucial to have that sort of information available. So we totally think you should support that. So check out that list if you can. And speaking of the author Michael Bond for Paddington Bear, somebody was just telling us in London you can go around and there's these statues of Paddington Bear everywhere. So that's also a really fun way to celebrate his life and his legacy. Take some pictures with those. And if you guys have seen those, you should let us know. Share some pictures with us.
Yeah, I've never been. We'll put that on our place to go.
Yes, so
so true.
that's
Yeah.
just another vacation we have to take,
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, ladies, right now we're going to take a quick break, but when we return, we will be confronting this idea of guilty pleasures in reading and what it means to us and how we think we can overcome it. So we'll be right back.
Book season officially underway for young readers. There are lots of young adult novels being devoured right now, and not just by young people. Adults have long had to live through the scrutiny of being fans of young adult novels or other more risque stories out there. I'm looking at you, 50 Shades of Grey. We often feel ridiculed for the things that we love, and we go out of our way to hide them. But we think that it's time that we reclaim this notion of guilty pleasures. Hashtag no shade.
Guilty pleasure is a noun defined as being something that one enjoys that is not generally held in high regard. Probably a more accurate assessment for book guilty pleasures is book you wouldn't want to be seen reading in public, books you don't want to admit you love, and books that you hide away on your lowest shelves. Well, we're not here for it. We think you should embrace the books you love, proudly read those awkward novels in public, and display your favorite books openly. But is that easy? And do you guys have some book confessions that you guys have to make today?
I do. I have to tell everyone, Twilight. I listen to, my husband makes fun of it all day, my friends make fun of it. You guys?
Yes, no.
I read it more than once. I liked it. I stand by it. It's not the greatest work of fiction out there for sure, but it was a solid piece of information.
Okay, that's fair. Well, I got to talk about YA novels for just a second. So, young adult fiction. Okay, so one that I'm reading right now is Breakwater. It's a mermaid fiction book, and it's actually written by one of my friends, and I'm loving it. And I don't think you should be afraid to read some YA novels. So I grabbed a copy of Everything because I'm really looking forward to watching the movie, and it's got lots of pictures and it's super fun, and as you can see, it's wet from actual tears, so you will definitely have to check that one out. And I mean, I don't think you should be afraid to read YA novels. I mean, think of all the people who are actually reading them but feel ashamed. Yeah, and I mean, another one, okay, this isn't really like guilty, but you know, when you're reading something and it's like a little more graphic and you're just kind of like, you know, you're kind of hiding it away. So I've been reading American Gods, love it, but definitely like I was reading some scenes and I was like, whoa, like that came up fast, and then I was like thinking about where I was, and I was like,
who sees it? Who's not reading?
What?
I've been that girl like on the airplane. I'm reading the Outlander series, which I think is great and not trashy at all, and everyone should read it, but there are some very explicit scenes in that book, and when I get to that point, I kind of like make sure that people around me can't see, because I don't want them judging what I'm reading, also out of context for the whole story, which is fantastic.
But we're not doing that anymore. We're taking guilty
it back.
pleasures back.
You guys make me feel so guilty because I don't want anyone to know what I'm reading, like any book. It doesn't matter what it is. Now,
but you talk about the one that you're very proud of all of the time, the book that you've read.
50 Shades of Grey.
So
I read all of them.
I mean, what about you? Like when you were reading it, did you feel ashamed? Like were you like hiding your book covers? Did you get like
you got like a second book cover to cover it up? It said like The Art of War.
yeah. No, I just read it at home.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I did not take that one out with me. And
that's when you get the e-reader, I guess.
True,
yeah.
yes. And I naturally read most of my books on my phone anyways. And then there's some books, I was reading a book by my pool last weekend, and I took the cover off. Not only because I didn't want it to get wet, but also because I didn't want people to see what I was reading. It was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
Ooh. You're going to tell us about that one.
Yeah, it's very good so far. Just started it, but I took the cover off, and I was like, can I cover this up?
So people, like, because people are going to see your wedding ring and naturally think you have 7 husbands, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, so, but maybe I just need to free myself and say,
Amen,
I don't
sister.
care. I'm going to read, and I'm going to love it, and I'm going to be proud.
Yeah. I have a fun story. When I was at a restaurant not too long ago, I ran into a friend, and he had one of his friends with him, and I had just bought this Harry Potter puzzle, which was, okay, whatever, it's for children. But, like, I wanted that puzzle, so I purchased it. And my friend's friend was like, oh, did you buy this puzzle for your children? I don't have any children. But I was just like, yeah. Why did I do that? Why did I not own up to that? That puzzle was for me. We're taking this back.
We're taking it back.
My Harry Potter puzzle, and those are my young adult novels.
So I do have another confession while we're on book confessions today. My husband and I are both people, when we see someone reading a book that we are interested in, we will just stop them. Like, you're in the middle of reading a book. Yeah. Oh my gosh, tell me about your book, or have I read that book? So we are those people, but I don't want people doing that to me if I'm in the middle of a book.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Happens in airports.
Well, the TSA now wants to confront us with our fears of book judges with some new rules that they're trying to throw down on us.
Yeah, the TSA is currently testing and plans to expand a rule that will have travelers removing their reading materials from their carry-on luggage for inspection. The new regulation is being challenged by the American Civil Liberties Union. They have noted concerns about passengers having to reveal what they are reading. Academics claim that what you're reading is none of anyone else's business, and others are concerned for the scrutiny that they might face if they're reading foreign texts, especially in Arabic. There have been documented cases of this, including a Pomona college student who was detained at one of the airports over his Arabic flashcards. The TSA has assured passengers that it is not their aim to scrutinize what you are reading, but the public is very concerned over their civil liberties. Some people, such as academics, travel with large amounts of books and may be targeted for additional screening. And if there is an issue with our right to privacy, which has been upheld and protected by the Supreme Court, then, someone reading any variety of self-help book or books about surviving trauma or abuse is not likely willing to just lay that out for the public to see. Does this law make you uncomfortable, and do you think it will make our airports safer?
I guess it does kind of make me uncomfortable because I'm not on the page with Morgan where I don't want to display the things that I'm reading, but I understand when other people feel that way, and they shouldn't be made to put that out there. You know, I don't like it.
I have a friend who is Egyptian, and his parents still read Arabic. And one time he told me the story. They were in the airport. His father was reading something in Arabic. It was nothing. And he got really nervous for his father. He was like, Dad, I don't want people seeing you reading an Arabic text, even though it's just a regular book. And I hate that he had to think that, and it's only going to get worse. And I have another true story. One time I was flying out of Israel, and so their security measures are much different than ours. But I had text in different languages, and I got held up in security, and they held me. And they asked me, why do you have these books? And I was like, hey, I was just here to study. But it took me 2 hours to get through security. Like, they took me back and searched me and searched everything.
That's intense.
And one was a Hebrew text, one was a Greek text. And I was like, what's wrong with this? So I can't imagine what people are feeling, the fear they have, and the privacy issue. I think this is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's what you're reading, it's almost kind of your journal sometime. And I think it's important that some people have to hide those things. So one of my friends, has been studying up on one of her friend's mental illness, but, she covers the books. So she'll get, like, gift wrapping paper and then actually cover the books because she doesn't want her friend, knowing, but she wants to understand more. And so for her, it's really important to hide that because she doesn't want her friend embarrassed. And then if other people saw those things, just kind of like the abuse that we were talking about, if people are studying up on these things, then that's important for them to keep private.
Yeah, of course. And it's just such an uncomfortable situation to be in. And not to mention how much longer it's going to take us to get through security if these measures continue to go forward, because you're already taking off your shoes and now you have to take out your books. And if you are one of these academics, it's entirely possible that you have 5 or 6 or even more books in your bag, and they have to sift through all the pages. That's what I was reading. They just kind of like leaf through. And that could take a long time. And then of course you're open to just other personal embarrassment outside of fear. If you are toting along the entire trilogy of 50 Shades of Grey, and like maybe you didn't want the girl sitting next to you on the plane to ask you about that,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So a lot of issues.
I thought technology was better than that. that they could
Yeah.
see and know what's in your bag.
What's the X-ray machine for?
And what's, I wonder what the impact will be on like pre-check. I have pre-check, it's great. Sometimes I go through small airports and it doesn't even matter that I have it. I wonder, because I'm always wondering this, is this a way to get more people to get pre-check and they make money off of it and they have more information on us, but that's the way you can speed through and they don't have to look through all your books.
Right. Well, do you guys think it's going to make us safer? That's kind of their claim to why they're doing it. I mean,
I think better technology is what we need. They're going to miss people. They miss people all the time. I mean, there's lots of studies. People go through and the security guards miss things.
I've like been surprised by what I've accidentally taken along with me. You know, like you accidentally put like your razor in your carry-on instead of, you know, your other luggage, and you're like, what? I got through with that?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Things like that.
for sure.
We'll see.
Well, not only do readers get harassed about their guilty pleasures sometimes, but authors and aspiring authors can also reap some of the harassment.
Brooklyn Beckham, son of Victoria and David Beckham, has come out with a new book. What I See is a collection of Beckham's personal photography showcased on his Instagram account. The book was released yesterday and has been met with critical cynicism. Critics are claiming that his photography skills are nothing special and that he is the product of sheer nepotism, citing that his parents worked very hard to get where they are and he's reaping the benefits of being an entitled child of celebrities. Regardless of his critics, Beckham is proud of his accomplishments, and he plans to study photography in New York City over the next years. Before coming stateside, he is planning a book tour in the UK and has some original prints for sale, with all proceeds benefiting the victims of the Grenfell Tower fire. So, what do you guys think about photography books?
I think photography books in general, good idea. But what about Instagram photography books?
I guess they are two different things for sure, because I love like coffee side table books, but Instagram, I would actually have to defend Instagram. One of my friends, he has an awesome Instagram account, and it's called Where's Josiah? And he goes all different places, and he's got an amazing mustache, first of all. Just so that on his Instagram account alone will make you want to follow him. But he goes and takes these really beautiful photos, and he puts a story with them. And so he had this best friend growing up, and they just have all these beautiful stories, and he's got these memories, and he pairs it with an amazing photo, and he plans to make a coffee table book one day, and I think that's really cool.
Love it, yeah. I love them. I don't understand why they're giving this kid such a hard time, but
I can see why they're giving him a hard time, though, because, I mean, he's known because of his parents, and there are other people who are working so hard to get to where they are. And think of it, in many industries that's happening now. So we have all of these models who are children of famous actors, famous singers, and there are other models in the world who are working so hard, and they will never get to the status that this person got to at 17 or 18, you know?
Oh, I get it. But
I totally understand that, yeah.
But I can take all my pictures,
Yeah.
download them to Shutterfly, make my own book, and sell them.
You could.
Maybe I'll do that.
I understand what you're saying about he is definitely entitled, and that is where he's at, but they're being so mean to him, and I think we should just lay off just like a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Just a little bit.
And, I mean, he is doing good work, though, with the victims of Grenfell Tower.
Yes,
I
that's
like it.
kind of him.
Yep.
Yeah.
So no more. Let's not be mean
Yeah.
to each
Yeah,
other,
just be nice.
to authors, to other readers. No more mean.
Yeah, and let's support the people trying to rise up who maybe they weren't born into it, you know?
Absolutely.
But anyway, we have a special interview for you guys with Daniel Rasmussen. He's a super accomplished young man, and he actually brought this book out of one of his theses. So it's a really interesting book, and I'm excited for you guys to check out this interview.
All right.
Hi guys, I am so excited to be here with Daniel Rasmussen. He is the author of American Uprising, the untold story of America's largest slave revolt. So, Daniel, I don't know if you knew this, but we have a couple things in common. We both have a passion for journalism. I was a journalism major in my undergrad, and I was also a rower in college.
Yeah.
Yeah, however, I am not on the Forbes 30 under 30, and I don't have a New York Times bestseller under my belt yet, so...
A few more years.
Yeah. So I want to hear a little bit about your story, American Uprising.
So American Uprising tells the story of the largest slave revolt in American history, which happened in New Orleans in 1811, so right before the War of 1812. And somewhere between 200 and 500 African-American slaves on the shores of the Mississippi River rose up on their plantations, and they marched towards New Orleans. And their intent, as far as I can tell, was to attempt to overthrow the colonial government in New Orleans, which was recently, remember the Louisiana Purchase happens in 1804, and so it's just a few years since America has bought Louisiana from the French. And the slaves do not like being slaves, and they do not like the local government that protects the slaveholders. And their intent is to destroy it all.
Will you tell me why they picked that date in January?
Sure. So there are a few things going on in January of 1811. The first is, for those who know anything about New Orleans, is that Mardi Gras happens in early spring. And so during the winter in January and February, the preparations for those celebrations are going on. It's the 12th night parties that really start it. And so during this period, the planters they weren't focused on the harvest is over, planting has yet to begun. And there's this moment of focus shifting from the task of being a slave-owning planter to the celebrations and social life in New Orleans. The second reason is that we often don't think about American expansion properly, but at this time, the United States is actually fighting a war in West Florida against the Spanish to control the territory. And so the U.S. military troops that were normally stationed in New Orleans were actually in Alabama, present-day Alabama, fighting against the Spanish. And so the military presence in New Orleans is very limited. The planters are distracted. And then third and finally is that a rain blows in. So there's a very heavy rainstorm in early January. And rain means two things. It means that it's going to be hard for horses and cannons and artillery to move up and down the river road because there's so much mud. And second, it's going to be hard to move things up the Mississippi River. And so slaves that are on foot and that just have muskets and cane knives are going to be in a much better position against the military forces arrayed against them than they would have been otherwise.
Okay, interesting. So tell me, so this is the largest slave revolt, and it came as a shock, obviously. Will you expand on why this was such a shock?
So I think to some extent it was a shock that it happened then and there. But to on another level, the fear of slave revolts is always at the forefront of the minds of the Southerners in the pre-Civil War era. It's the most terrifying thing. And so, and you might, if you think about how do you keep men enslaved? What is the mechanism by which you keep people working for nothing, right? You're not offering them any incentives, right? So how do you force them to work? And the answer is with violence. Right? Brutal violence. It's the only way. If you don't do what I tell you, I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to whip you, or I'm going to, punish your family, right? That's the mode through which these workers were forced to work. And so there's this natural violence inherent in the system. And what had happened in the 1790s and early 1800s is that the island of Haiti had risen up against the French. So the French were really the most brutal slave owners. And think of Haiti as being like the Saudi Arabia of today, and the oil of the time was sugar, and Haiti was the central sugar producing colony. Louisiana is also sugar producing colony, but the slaves there rose up, and they actually beat the French. So Napoleon Bonaparte, one of the great generals of all time, sends his brother to fight the slaves in Haiti. They bring dogs the size, near the size of small horses that are trained to kill. But the slaves win, which is totally remarkable. And this sends shockwaves throughout the New World, and especially to Louisiana. It's a French colony. It's a sugar colony. It's got a lot in common with Haiti. And the slaves there hear about this. And so they're thinking, wow, if the Haitians can win, maybe we can win. And the planters are thinking, gee, if the Haitian slaves can do that in Haiti, we've got to be totally on guard here, right? We've got to be vicious in suppressing it. We've got to do everything we possibly can to maintain our safety. And so there are militia, right? The entire South is militarized, not just to fight the Indians, but to keep fight and the Spanish, but to keep the slaves down.
So, it's kind of hard to believe that such a big story was kind of swept under the rug in history. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
So I think, we have to step back, and I think we're so fortunate today to live in perhaps the most peaceful country in this peaceful age of all of mankind. But even go back 100 or 200 years, society was 10 or 20 times more violent. People were murderous and barbaric. And it's only by, the great virtues of the American system and Western democracy that we live in peace. But at the time, it was a tremendously violent society. And so what we should think of that is, in some sense, a continuity with the rest of history rather than a unique anomaly in American history, right? That the way that people maintain order outside of capitalism, right? If you're not going to be capitalist and you're not going to say, well, I'm going to pay you for your work, right? How are you going to make someone work where you're going to kill them if they don't? And that was the answer to how people made other people work prior to the origination of capitalism in Western society. And so you can really see, here in this early period in American history, right? Obviously, the great sort of original sin of America is slavery, right? And slavery was a barbaric relic of the past that, thank God, our country moved past. But the level of violence required to preserve slavery and to keep these people in chains was so brutal and so beyond the pale of what we can even imagine today, living the way we do. It just boggles the mind. I mean, we're talking about collars with spikes pointed inwards. We're talking about beheadings. We're talking about dismembered corpses. It's just horrific, and it's violent, and it's the way that almost everybody used to live, even 200 years ago. And I think, there's a warning there that perhaps, how quickly our society can descend into that abyss of chaos and evil and violence if we don't do everything we can, if we don't wake up every day focused on preserving the system that we have here today, which prevents us from slipping into barbarism, which is so close to us. It's not far away. It's lurking beneath the surface, and it's there.
So you've written this story here about heroism and people who stood up for what they believed in, even till death, and I think that's really important. This is a really great book for you guys to check out. It's American Uprising, The Untold Story of America's Largest Slave Revolt. So check out this book, and thank you so much, Daniel, for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Andrew.
Hi guys, I'm so
All right, Charlie, we see you with your Nancy Drew books. And a huge thanks to Daniel Rasmussen. So his book, American Uprising, will be on flash sale at the end of this episode. So for 19 minutes, click the link below and get that book for 99 cents.
All right, and as always, we will be adding that book to our personal TBR list. And as that list keeps growing longer and longer, authors just keep putting out these must-read books. John Green, acclaimed author of Fault in Our Stars and Paper Towns, has announced the release date for his new book, Turtles All the Way Down, at a recent VidCon 2017 panel. It will be out on October 10th, and the fans took to Twitter to rejoice. Green has announced some key details to keep his fans enticed. The heroine will be a 16-year-old girl named Asa Holmes. The story begins with a fugitive billionaire and a cash reward. The story involves lifelong friendships and Star Wars fan fiction, and Asa's story is partly inspired by Green's own life experiences. Are you guys John Green fans? Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm really excited about that one. I've been wanting to read The Fault in Our Stars.
Me too.
Yeah, that will also be covered with tears,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
We're going to get to that book soon, and I'm definitely going to read probably his whole collection because people are really excited about him. He's pretty cool.
I know I definitely need to read more of his stuff. So.
Me too, yeah.
So on my list. But another author, Dan Brown, has also announced details about his forthcoming book for fans to look forward to. The book Origin will be the 5th book featuring Brown's signature character, Robert Langdon, who first made his appearance in The Da Vinci Code. A mysterious book trailer was released on YouTube, which we will link in our show notes afterwards. And the publisher is promising that Brown is keeping with his trademark style of interweaving codes and symbols and science and religion and history and art and architecture. We are sure that this story promises more of the intrigue and adventure that fans love.
Awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the
forward to
Da Vinci Code, and then I totally quit reading it, and I think it's because they started kind of coming out when I was in college and I didn't have time, but I'm excited to pick it back up because the fans are saying this might be the best one yet, so that's a great time to get caught up on the series.
So, you know, like when movies come out and then you have to like binge watch the other movies before like this movie comes out, do you guys do that with books before releases of authors?
Absolutely,
Cool.
yeah.
Cool. So
and rereading is a very important staple of life.
Yeah, so let us know. Are you going to pick up this book? And we'll talk about it when it comes out. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks for joining us today at our new time slot of 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Time. As always, share this post and send us a message for a free t-shirt. In that message, tell us your size and if you would like a crew neck or a V-neck. The V-neck is a little fitted, so just so you know. And don't forget to give us your address.
And don't forget to grab your copy of American Uprising. So we have a flash sale after every episode for 19 minutes. So grab that book today.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. And everyone have a happy and safe holiday weekend out there. I'm Mo.
I'm Andrea.
And I'm Morgan.
And we will be back on Monday, July the 3rd at our very new time slot of 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Time. Until then, keep reading, writing, and being awesome. I know we will. Bye.